In arguably the biggest news in cable TV, Tucker Carlson is officially out at Fox News. Fox released a statement today saying, Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. We thank him for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor. Mr. Carlson's last program was Friday, April 21st. Fox News Tonight will air live at 8 p.m. Eastern, starting this evening as an interim show helmed by rotating Fox News personalities until a new host is named. Now, notably, Tucker was not given a final show, which may or may not suggest that this split was perhaps not as amicable as their statement suggests. What is clear, though, is that Tucker certainly didn't expect his last show on Friday to be his final show, considering this is how his sign-off went.
We just thought, what a great way to end a week.
Yeah.
Truly, that was a great segment, and I'm just grateful that you came on, and I'm especially grateful for the pie.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Employee of the week, we're just make it of the year, Tyler Morrell of Coco's Pizza. That's it for us for the week. We'll be back. By the way, the entire episode of Let Them Eat Bugs, not quite as good as pizza, streaming now on Fox Nation. Use the promo code ORIGINALS for 30 days free. And we'll be back on Monday. In the meantime, have the best weekend with the ones that you love, and we'll see you then.
Okay, so yesterday I got very excited when I heard the news that Tucker Carlson decided to leave Fox News, or Fox News decided that Tucker Carlson would no longer have a job. I think it's the latter.
Yeah, everything that I heard was the latter.
Well, even that sign-off that we listened to from his last show didn't sound like the sign-off of a last show, or at least someone who knew it was going to be their last show.
And I'm happy that it happened for some reasons, but this isn't the first time that Fox News has parted ways with someone when it served their purpose, only for the next person to end up being equal to or worse.
Right, because Tucker Carlson was just that. He followed up Bill O'Reilly after Bill O'Reilly was allegedly sexually harassing folks, women, I think. Not that I think that it was women, but I think that it was I don't know if there was okay, let me rephrase. I don't know if it was a lawsuit, but there were allegations of sexual harassment from Bill O'Reilly, and that's why he left and Tucker Carlson replaced him.
Right. I do think it's pretty clear based on the timing that this is related to fallout from Fox and Dominion settling.
Oh, yes. I mean, he had so many folks on his show that supported the big lie. Well, do they call it the big lie, or are we calling it the big lie?
I don't think they have ever referred to it as a lie in any way, shape, fashion, or form.
I mean, I thought that I wasn't sure if they were calling Biden winning the election the big lie, or we were calling them saying that Biden did not win the election the big lie. Either
I think
way,
it's the latter. Yeah.
It fits either way.
Referring to it as the latter.
Okay. Regardless, a lot of his show consisted of guests that supported a lie that simply was untrue, and it resulted in a defamation lawsuit from Dominion. But I didn't quite realize this. The Dominion lawsuit's the one that I knew about, the $1.6 billion lawsuit that was settled for $787 million. But there's another lawsuit out there from Smartmatic. They have a $2.7 billion lawsuit, similar to Dominion's lawsuit against Fox. So there's that. And then there was another lawsuit. I don't know if it was a harassment lawsuit. I don't know. I don't think. I guess I think you consider that sexual harassment. But his former one of his former producers, who brought a lot of high profile guests to his show, or secured high profile guests for his show, has a suit against him and Fox News for, even to the extent that Fox News law, one of the issues was like Fox News lawyers coerced her into deleting text messages that would be used as evidence against him and Fox News from her phone. So all those, all those lawsuits are pretty hefty, because I saw in a breakdown that Fox News' 2022 profits were $1.2 billion. And that Dominion lawsuit, I'm sure they have a payment plan going on for Dominion, but that Dominion lawsuit wiped out over half of their profits from 2022. And then the Smartmatic lawsuit is $1 billion more, $1.1 billion more than Dominion. It's a $2.7 billion lawsuit, so it's even bigger. And I think they are in a position of power at this point based on the result of the Dominion settlement.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about because I don't know that it changes much about their position. It certainly doesn't hurt it. And it kind of goes back to what I was referring to with the Dominion suit. There's a big difference between what you can prove within the framework of the law in a courtroom versus the court of public opinion. And I don't know, I mean, there's plenty still to learn about the strength of Dominion's position. Even though that's already been settled, there's a lot more to learn about the strength of Smartmatic's position and whether or not it's better than what Dominion may have had or on par or what. So it's an interesting thing to think about because I would not necessarily say their position is improved other than it gives them even more negotiating power to settle for sure.
Yeah.
But I also don't know that it negatively affects it in any way, shape, fashion, or form. Like I think there's either there's a little bit of improvement in position or no net effect.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'd really like to know just full scope of what they have, though, to get a better feel for strength of position in that particular suit.
Yeah. You and Fox News' lawyers. Me as well. So one of the things that I see is sort of problematic. Tucker Carlson's not dead. He's not. And that's good. I don't wish bad things. Well, the bad things that I wish upon him would be in terms of like what you would, like this being fired for repercussions for going, lying. That's those kind of bad things. I'm like, I don't even necessarily wish that upon him, but I'm happy to see that somebody has done this, but I don't think he's not going to go away. I expect that he'll land somewhere, and a lot of people are going to follow him, and he's going to be on the fringe a bit more. And I find that somewhat problematic because, I'm curious to see what the rest of Fox News does. Are they going to continue chasing the fringe, or are they learning their lesson?
History tends to tell us that they will not change. They just might adopt different messaging strategies.
The real change, I think the real change that we need to see is that you cannot call yourself a news source. Or I guess there's some sort of news source reformation. Even to, I remember hearing some Dan Carlin. He was a news guy. I don't know if he still works in the news or if his, for the past. I was listening to him in 2009 and 10. I think 2010 was the last time I listened to his show. But I know that he had gotten his start in news in the 80s, and he was saying that, or one of the things that he had talked about that really stuck with me is that we have considered unofficially the fourth wing of government to be the media. And we have made a huge mistake in not securing unbiased media, an unbiased media outlet, one that maybe is paid for by tax dollars, but not at all controlled by the government or corporations.
It's an interesting thought because how thinking about the way our economy tends to work in general, it would end up being the worst funded agency with so many different hurdles. I don't know that ideal kind of idea could exist and survive without some very specific legislation protecting it.
Yeah, I think that was Carlin's point. There would be like a certain amount of funding that it needs. There'd be a certain amount of legislation that it needs. There need to be some sort of protection for if like a private corporation wants to have a news outlet and what where their money is coming from and who they are protecting or who they're not reporting on. It's I guess really what it needs is what it really needs is maybe to be officially a fourth branch of government. It's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the idea. I really do. It's
right.
Not that I want to argue it for the sake of arguing it.
It's kind of a utopian idea.
Right. It's the kind of thing that as soon as you put it into practice, you immediately have problems. Because if you think about it as, like in the last example there, maybe it needs to be a fourth branch of government, then it immediately becomes untrustworthy.
Right. We obviously, everything is corruptible, and it's, as it exists now, it exists with a different type of corruption than our existing three branches of government. I feel like what I'm thinking of is something that would exist in an Aaron Sorkin screenplay or script.
Well, I think it can absolutely exist in our current environment as well. It's just really tricky to think about how many different things you would have to address in order for it to exist. Because funding would obviously be a big thing. You'd have to have some sort of competitiveness built in with regard to inflation and salaries and everything else. And nothing like that I'm aware of exists. And that's where it's just kind of a fascinating thought experiment.
It's the thing that we want. We want the fourth branch of government, maybe give it, 20% of the defense budget. And then, we also want better education, give it like 50% of the defense budget.
I think you're grossly overestimating underestimating what percentages of the defense budget you would need to allocate. Because I think you could do like 10% of the defense budget and take care of that fourth branch, and another 15% and take care of education, and another 15% and take care of basic
healthcare
needs, and just meeting the basic hierarchy of needs for every individual.
I'm not sure I actually meant those percentages so much as I think there's a lot of we're spending way too much money on it would be better spent.
Yeah, I call it that. It's just a matter of like 50% would be so much money that you could break it down further and cover so many different things.
Well, we want teachers to be making at a minimum of 6 figures so that we can demand to have the best teachers in the country.
I mean, I kind of agree with the idea, but I'm not so sure I agree. But it's because, so with regard to education, I'm so horrifically biased against education because of my experiences that it's tough for me to say, let's fix it there. Why don't we promote literacy programs and let people have the freedom to explore and self-discover and not ban books? And
yeah, that's part of what it is going unsaid here. Is it's not for our current. I'm not saying that we shouldn't give our current teachers and education system more money, but I was thinking of a more idealistic, better education system. Not an education system that teaches you how to stay in the system and keep you down the way that you are, but like an actual proper education system.
And for that, I think that's a fair call out, because if we were to take the current system and just say, you've had your day, you've proven inadequate, we're starting over, and design something appropriate from the ground up with those funds, then yes, every teacher should absolutely have a 6-figure income. There are just too many in the current system that are educators in profession only.
Right. But, when you pay somebody more, you can demand more of them. And I don't mean like working them to the bone, but, you get what you pay for.
You can get people who actually teach critical thinking or analytical skills or something other than rote memorization in order to pass a standardized test.
I don't know if Jacob is doing ACAP. It's around this time that the kids do ACAP. Are you familiar with that?
Sounds familiar. I think it starts in 3rd grade. I think.
Okay.
I think up through 2nd grade, they do some standardized testing, but I don't think it's officially ACAP until 3rd.
Okay. I didn't even remember that. In my head, I keep thinking of OWLs on like from Harry Potter. But
I always think of ITBS, the Iowa Test of Basic Skills.
The what?
The Iowa Test of Basic Skills.
I don't know this.
So growing up, it was, I think middle school and high school, that was the standard that we were tested against. So you had the ITBS tests.
I was from kindergarten through 3rd grade, I went to a public school in Mobile, Alabama, and then 4th and 5th, I was in a public school in Tennessee, and 6th grade was homeschooled in Tennessee, and then 7th through graduation, homeschooled in Alabama. And I know that we did some standardized tests. It was required by the state, but we didn't have to do it every year. But I remember doing it, but I have no idea what the testing system. I don't know what this is. The whole point I was going to bring up was that my kids are. I think Jude did ACAP last week or the week before, and Luke's last ACAP test is tomorrow. They're in 4th and 6th grade, and they have they're way more stressed about it than they really should be, because they know that it's not for a grade. They know that it doesn't impact their progress in their education, but they're told about how much it affects the teachers. And they have I feel like an unreasonable amount of stress associated with the test. I was like, you go in and you do what you do your best on the test to represent what you learned. That's don't try to overthink it. You can't study for it. Don't try to overthink what you're doing. You as one student isn't going to change the outcome of the results of the test. So just go in, be prepared, do your best, and don't stress about it, because it really doesn't affect you. And you've got good teachers, so that all went in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, we can go into so many different rants about how education. I was going to say healthcare. It's just as bad. The big thing that I really dislike is that these tests reflect some scoring of your educator, that mindset, because it's so horrifically flawed that it's a lot like self-reporting on anything. You think about how many people are asked to log hours at work, kind of thing. Or
I have to log hours at work.
Right, or provide, general categorizations of what you've done because it's client-facing, or, project management is big on that type of thing. And it's all horrifically flawed. You always represent things differently than the reality because you view it differently than anybody else.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with attempting to measure an educator's ability to educate through quantitatively assessing some aspect of standard knowledge across a student body. Everybody learns differently. Everybody has different strengths and weaknesses, different talents. We try way too hard to make these ubiquitous interpretations of things that just don't make any sense.
Well, when you have a system that wants to condition people, that leaves room for beings to not care about actual education and just draw a line in the sand and say, if you don't meet this line, you don't get funding, or you get less funding, or if you are above this line, you get more funding. It's how a system is destroying what should be a value. It should be a valuable system, but it is just another cog in the machine.
You're doing a great job of brainwashing your students. Here's more money.
And that's how we end up with so many people that enjoy Tucker Carlson on Fox News.
Yes, it is unfortunately the root of many problems.
And if your education is to be brainwashed to do mindless tasks, then you can't sit and watch the news. Be like, here, that's be critical about what it is that you're seeing and hearing, and then you fall in. It's easy to fall into whether you're on a regressive or progressive. You fall on that kind of mentality or that kind of conditioning is what allows you to want to seek out things that support the narrative that you already believe.
So I agree, but I think it's a little more subtle than that. I think it's the difference between recognizing that that's happening and being able to objectively identify news sources, as opposed to not recognizing that's happening and instead just being steered toward it. And I don't know that that makes the most sense, but it's awareness trumps knowledge in most cases. If you're aware of something, it means that you are able to at least identify that there's this influence and attempt to understand it. But if you're not aware of it, even if you know it exists, you're going to fall victim to it. And so this idea of being well educated and being taught to identify patterns or some level of critical thinking, all of it's great on theory, but if it's only memorized from like a perspective of how to identify what critical thinking is, or critical thinking is the ability to take this piece of literature and extract meaning from it, that doesn't serve the same purpose. And sure, many educators point to those things as critical thinking skills because it's a step in that direction, but it's not critical thinking. That's basic interpretation. And where that really shows is when you have people who, instead of being aware of these different influences and the idea of an echo chamber and not necessarily gravitating toward the familiar or the comfortable, because you recognize there's an influence there that maybe you don't understand, but you know it's there. And so you take that moment to think or to look at other sources and just kind of have an awareness of the narrative. That makes all the difference in the world. And the biggest problem is that the current systems don't teach you how to identify or know that exists. They attempt to teach you how to interpret the information you're being provided without any type of context or awareness of alternative information. And that's what leads to finding a comfortable place to get news that reinforces your own views and beliefs.
We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after-show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.